everybody, and welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is John Campea.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you from right here at the Collider Video headquarters here in Burbank, California. And I've learned today, never let Mark Ellis slip you a drink when he's doing a Bill Cosby impersonation.
Like a mixture.
Here, Kristian Harloff.
Guys, I'm getting my daughter a dog, and I'm going to name it Ookie.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's
Also
behind the
here,
scenes stuff.
Mark Ellis.
I want to clean this show up right off the bat, and I also want to thank all the Collider fans, one of whom actually found John Schnepp in the crowd in the Ferris Bueller parade. You can see it on my Twitter. He's going crazy. He's sweaty, like you want to see John Schnepp in 1986.
While Tom Cruise is getting ready to release his new film, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, this week, he's also still basking in the surprise success of The Edge of Tomorrow. In a recent interview, Cruise confirmed that they're looking at a sequel to the film when he said the following: "I pitched it to Christopher McQuarrie and Doug Liman. We were there one night and I was like, I've got an idea for it. It could be so much fun. Gotta get Emily." I was like, "Emily, please." She was like, "Give me another year, please." In the same interview, Cruise suggested that they already have other plans for Mission Impossible 6 and it could start shooting as early as next summer. John, what do you make of Cruise's comments?
Love them. Really love them. Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, All You Need Is Kill, Shoobadoo, Bing Bang, whatever it is, the crack team over at the Warner Brothers marketing department is going to call the movie this week, was such a pleasant surprise. I mean, we went on, and I've had so many people tweeting to us like over the past year about, thank you so much for talking about Edge of Tomorrow, because I never would have gone to see it. Of course you wouldn't have gone to see it, because it's probably the worst marketing campaign I have ever seen. Like, it was just terrible. And yet word of mouth got out about it and people went to go see it because it was actually a really damn good movie. I also like the fact that they're talking about bringing both of these characters back. You got to have Emily Blunt there. I mean, I just think you absolutely have to have her there. I hope that when they do it, and hope the idea isn't going back and reliving Groundhog Day again. Like, I hope they find something to move beyond that. To commence story. I mean, hey, the world's been invaded by aliens. There's a lot to go from there as it is. We don't have to do the whole time cycle thing again, even though they did it great in the first place. And shooting Mission Impossible 6 maybe next year, Tom Cruise ain't 28. I mean, and he's really hitting his stride with his action stuff right now. So crank as many of these out as you can while you can. Anyway, Kristian, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Mission Impossible, duh. I mean, as far as what it... I know it hasn't come out yet. We don't know what the money's going to be like, but as far as just as response in general from critics, from fans that have seen the movie, it's a no-brainer. And you should, if you're getting better each and every time, you should. I'm curious if Chris McQuarrie is going to come back as well too, but we'll find that out. Now, as far as Edge of Tomorrow goes, yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to go the other side as far as the time travel thing goes. I think that you're right. I think that you risk being repetitive, pun intended. But I also think that it's one of the things that made this movie so cool. Is it was like playing a video game, but being so invested in it and watching what happens in real life. So I'd like to see if they're able to do that again. But I also agree with you 100% that you cannot do this movie without Emily Blunt. She is the one that came out of that movie. Tom Cruise was incredible, but Emily Blunt cemented herself as a female action star, as an action star in general.
As a star, period.
As a star in general.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, with Edge of Tomorrow, what I'm curious about, now, Kick-Ass was a movie that didn't do so well in the theaters. It did okay, the original, but had a great word of mouth, and people loved it, and people were raving about it. And then they did a sequel, and the sequel didn't do so good. Now, granted, had a lot of different elements that didn't come back with that one. So I'm curious if because Edge of Tomorrow is one of those movies that people loved and raved, myself being one of them. You and I just did a top 5 list, Mark, and that was I think number 3 or 4. I hope at number 2, I hope they put together the right team. I love that they bring everyone back.
Yeah, unlike Kick-Ass, so just to your point, unlike Kick-Ass, which struggled a bit with the box office, Edge of Tomorrow, because of that strong word of mouth we discussed, it did crack that 100 million mark domestically and ended up making just about 370 million worldwide. So it's not as big of a financial roll of the dice as say a Kick-Ass 2 was.
Right. But it's still one of those movies that movie Edge of Tomorrow Should have, and I think that Oblivion was a reason that the marketing, yes, and also because Oblivion had just come out and looked very similar in those trailers as well too. And the trailer was terrible for Edge of Tomorrow. But the thing is, that movie, for the quality that it was and the scale that it was, I just watched it again. It's amazing. That movie should have been close to $1 billion movie. That movie was incredible. It's one of the best action movies that we've had in a very long time, with good story and characters. So I hope that they can do another one and don't just do it for sequel's sake.
Yeah, and you know, John was joking about it, but you really need to title this movie something good. Like, what do you call Edge of Tomorrow the sequel? What do you call Live, Die, Repeat again? Is it like The Verge of yesterday? Like, what's the actual title that you use to sell this movie? Because, like you said, it does need to have a different plot. I think that the fact that Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise both had this weird characteristic where they could relive each day, maybe that's something that an enemy can do this time, and then they have to figure out how to stop that enemy. I don't know. I'm not writing the damn movie. I just want to see it. This would be the biggest thing that ever happened to Netflix if it was released on something like that instead. I think you can do a theatrical version like this, and it can do very well. Mission Impossible 6 this is Tom Cruise in his career saying, I have a limited amount of time to still be an action star and to be able to do all my own stunts. Like, you go see the Mission Impossible movies, you're like, dude, that's a 50-year-old man hanging on the side of an airplane. And yeah, he's maybe he's a little baddie upstairs, but for an audience, it's so much fun to watch him go through these things. So as long as he wants to keep putting his body through that, crank him out, man. More Edge of Tomorrow, more Mission Impossible for me.
All right, what's next?
Empire magazine features Batman vs. Superman in their latest issue, and a lot of details have emerged from it, mostly focusing on details of Batman himself. First off, Ben Affleck talks about the new incarnation of the Dark Knight, saying the following. Initially, I thought, I'm older, it doesn't seem like the right sort of fit for me. Then Zach pitched me this concept of this older, more broken, kind of effed up Batman. It was something we haven't seen. We have seen that Batman is willing to cross the line to protect people. That vigilantism has been a part of his character all along, and we are tapping into that mentality when faced by something as potentially as deadly as Superman. Then director of Batman vs. Superman, Zack Snyder, added the following. We are playing him 45 or 46. He has been Batman for 20 years. All the history is there. Was there a Robin at one point? Possibly. We want to assume that Batman has reached this point in his life and career as a superhero, and Superman represents a sort of philosophical change. He is a paradigm shift for Batman. I've been fighting criminals all my life, trying to find justice, and now I am confronted with a concept that is transcendent to me. In the face of Superman, a man robbing a bank doesn't matter. He's having a crisis of conscience. Am I really just a vigilante who stalks the alleys of Gotham? It is rich stuff that he deals with. Ben does an amazing job. A few other tidbits are added in the article, including the notion that Aquaman will have a very small role in the film, and that in the Suicide Squad, Batman is the one who put all the members behind bars in the first place. Mark, what do you think about the comments we heard in this feature?
Thank you, Ashley. That'll be all.
You're welcome.
You can take 5. That was incredible. Well done. I love everything about these comments. What stuck out to me the most is there a Robin at one point? Possibly. Yeah, there's going to have been a Robin at some point, is how I read that. The overall tone of what this Batman is going to bring to the table is so exciting to me, and a lot of it is stuff that we could have inferred from watching this latest trailer. It actually just it proves on top of that this is a Batman who is not only threatened by the presence of Superman from a fear standpoint, where he's like, oh man, who is this guy? It's also like, you know, I've been patrolling Gotham, and this guy makes me look like a mall cop. I mean, this guy makes me look like I'm next to nothing in the superhero realm, and that is is somebody's ego, like Bruce Wayne, that is gonna infiltrate somehow. When you put all of that into a middle-aged guy who's trying to get back into fighting shape and crime fighting shape, it's such an exciting premise. And Ben Affleck hit it on the head. He's like, we've seen these other Batmans before, we've never seen a Batman like this before. I am so excited to see this movie now. Every comment that I hear coming out of this project, even the stuff about Aquaman, who's going to have a small role in there, which I like. Pop him in there. Don't let him have too much to do. I would feel the same way about Wonder Woman as well. I'm not sure how much Gal Gadot is actually going to be in this movie. She was in the trailer a lot, maybe too much for my liking. We'll see how the movie plays out. But right now, I can't wait to see this Batman.
It's like the thing that the Christian Bale Batman, we all got so excited about, because for the first time they hinted at these aspects of Batman that we've been wanting to see forever. And now we're getting the Batman we've always wanted to see forever, for a very, very long time. And it is great to hear him talk about, look, he's broken, he's damaged goods, man. If you've been a Batman for 20 years, some wires are going to snap at some point. But I love the whole discussion they're having about this philosophical change. Batman is a guy who's been roaming the streets and trying to protect the streets of Gotham. Superman shows up, and for everybody else on the planet as well, it reconfigures your notion of reality. Like, he's always been thinking about protecting the streets of Gotham. Now suddenly he's thinking about things on a global scale. He's thinking, now Batman for the first time is forced to think about things as humanity as a race and protecting that. And we hear that line in the trailers, like, this dude has the power to eliminate the human race. He's got to be destroyed. I mean, so he's having now to think in a totally different way than he's ever thought about before. I was also very excited about the Aquaman comments because I think Zack Snyder says, you'll be aware of his existence. Mm-hmm. So that tells me super small role, which I'm very excited about. We've said this before, I think the Wonder Woman role will be small. I hope that's the case because I want Batman versus Superman to be about Batman versus Superman. Is that too much to ask? So sure, give us a little introductions to a few of these other characters. That's cool. Set it up for the next movie. That's great. But can we please at least keep the lion's share of our focus on the two dudes we've been waiting for 20 years to see on screen, maybe longer for some people. So I love everything I'm hearing about this. And I've said this before about Batman versus Superman. You can aim for the right thing and still mess it up and make it a terrible movie. But damn it, at least start by aiming for the right thing. And it looks like to me like these guys are aiming for the right stuff. Kristian?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I love these comments. And let's not make any mistake about it, that Batman is the key for the survival of this movie. Because even though Superman may, and I know, Mark, probably you want to see him developed a little more.
I want to see him talk, yeah.
Fine, but he was developed in Man of Steel for me. And I think that, we know who he is in this universe. The last vision we have of Batman is Christian Bale. And that's clearly not the Batman that's in. Now, there might be elements of that type of Batman in this one, but Batman was always damaged, though. He was damaged from when he started. Yes, he but so when
he saw his parents shot in front of him.
The reason he started is because he's a little cracked on the inside. Now, a cracked 25-year-old Batman is one thing, but a cracked 45-year-old Batman, after doing this for so many years and then coming back to it and referencing that Robin might have survived, and we'd see in the trailer with the Robin suit that also had an effect on him as well too. This dude has been beaten down, and now he looks up, he sees in the sky Metropolis is crashing down, and he blames Superman for it. It probably goes back and references the things that he had with his parents as well too. It probably brings that to it. And I think Ben Affleck, and it's funny, and I totally admit it, that when the announcement came out that Ben Affleck was Batman, was not a fan of it. I have changed a total 180 because I think this is the guy that can go through those types of emotions and portray this type of Batman that Snyder and Affleck are talking about here. And I also think that because of what Ben Affleck has been able to do lately with his director's hat on, Ben Affleck is really good at developing character and story.
Oh, yes, he is.
He is, getting to the point where we were referring to him as one of the masters already, if it could possibly happen. And there's a reason for that, because I think he's sitting down with Zack Snyder and said, well, what if this? What about that? Because when I do my standalone film and I direct that, I want it to continue on from the arc that we're building here. So yeah, I love these comments. I think it's smart. And I think Zack Snyder needs a guy like Ben Affleck to help him, because everyone's biggest criticism of Snyder, whether you love him or hate him, has been, it's a little visual. I'd like to see a little more. I think Affleck is that guy to bring that to Batman.
And one of the exciting things about it, because of Ben Affleck, you're pointing out, is that Zack Snyder is pretty much known as a very collaborative filmmaker. He loves to really incorporate the people around him, the talent around him, in helping assess direction. Now, he's ultimately the final say guy, but it's really that thinking about him, who I think he is a very talented director on his own, bringing in a guy like Ben Affleck, who might be one of the best, if not the best, up-and-coming directors in the business right now. And there's a lot of those shots in that Empire Star. You see Zach and Ben in the Batman suit standing around monitors. Like, you just feel it, right?
So, I mean, those comments that Ashley just read, that sounds like a conversation that they had early on in the filmmaking process, just between boys, and now we all get to hear it. Right. And it seems like everything that we as fans, like John said, is what we've seen the young Batman. We've seen that broken 25-year-old. Let's see the broken middle-aged guy.
Well, you bring up a great point, you guys, too, as far as like, because Snyder's not just working with a top star actor now. He's working with one of his peers.
Right.
And that's big. Like, if I'm Zack Snyder, I'm going, yeah, look at this guy. His film just won an Oscar. Too. So yeah, I want to talk to him as much as I can to make myself as a filmmaker better.
Yeah. Hey Ben, so when you're making Argo, would you have done this shot?
Yeah,
like
that's where it comes.
All right, folks, we reached that part of the show now for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down. Then those of us at the table are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So Ashley, what do we got?
It looks like the classic character Shaft is getting a reboot yet again. The original 1971 blaxploitation film was first remade in 2000 with Samuel L. Jackson as the star, and now, according to a report from The Hollywood Reporter, it's coming to the big screen again, this time as a comedy. TV's Blackish creator Kenya Barris is co-writing the new film, which is predicted as being in the reign of the new 21 Jump Street movies. Kristian, buy or sell a remake of Shaft?
I will tentatively buy it for now. Had Ashley you not said the vein of 21 Jump Street, I probably would have sold it. Because the other Shaft movie was pretty much a comedy too, even though there was some action and stuff too, and pretty crazy. There were a lot of funny lines in there, especially with Sam Jackson. But it all depends, and I'm being repetitive here every show at this point, but it all depends on the team. It all depends on who they get, not just the writer here, who's going to star in it. The thing with 21 Jump Street is that, I don't want to say lightning in a bottle because they did it twice, but it's very hard to poke fun at yourself that way and so blatant and make it work. And that's what 21 Jump Street was able to do. And it was also a little bit, I think, more of a known property. Shaft's a known property, but not as much as, say, 21 Jump Street was. But I still like the idea. I still think there can be some really silliest, or it's got to be rated R. It's got to be rated R to really push what this has to be for what this franchise or for what these movies were in the past. It has to be. But I think you can get some really crazy, silly stuff, and I like to see some unknown, up and coming comedians do it as well too.
So let me get this straight. You wanted to make a modern comedy that's kind of homage and a spoof of the classic characters from the blaxploitation period. They did it. It was called Black Dynamite, and it was awesome. Just give us it. I mean, that's what it was. Black Dynamite with Michael Jai White. By the way, folks, if you have not seen, I know most of you haven't. If you have not seen Michael Jai White's Black Dynamite, oh my God, treat yourself. It is freaking hilarious. It peters off a little bit near the end, but the first 3 plus, almost the entire 3 acts were just incredibly funny. You have to treat yourself and see it. So I kind of feel like, so they're just ripping off Black Dynamite. That's exactly what it feels like to me, except they're going with a well-known movie title like Shaft. So I don't know. Because of that, I'm going to sell it for now. What do you think?
I'm buying it because it's my duty to get with that booty. That's one of the great lines that you heard in Sam Jackson's remake of Shaft, and it wasn't that good of a movie because they took it too seriously. There were some comedic elements, but making it a full-on spoof is the way to redo this film. And when they compared it to 21 Jump Street, all I thought is we need to have Ice Cube in this movie in some capacity. Maybe the same exact role, maybe the same character he has in 21 Jump Street. I'm excited for this movie now because, again, that's the way you do that. I think that's the way. I don't want to see a glut of popular things in the past coming back and spoofing themselves, but we have seen success with it, even with movies. Like, you go as far back as the 90s, you look at something like the Brady Bunch movie or Addams Family. Those are really well done spoofs. 21 and 22 Jump Street brought it back a little bit. I think Shaft is material that's ripe for that as well.
All right, what's next?
According to a report in Deadline, True Detective star Vince Vaughn will join Andrew Garfield and Sam Worthington in the new film Hacksaw Ridge, the next directorial effort for Academy Award winner Mel Gibson. The film marks Gibson's first directorial effort since his 2006 Oscar-nominated film Apocalypto. The movie tells the true World War II story of Corporal Desmond Doss Garfield, the first conscientious objector to receive the U.S. Congressional Medal of Honor after acts of bravery and sacrifice, saving 75 men during the Battle of Okinawa. Vaughn plays Sergeant Howell, a non-commissioned officer who prepares his soldiers for battle by pushing them to their limits, both physically and mentally, in order to keep them alive. When Doss refuses to shoot and kill the enemy, it contradicts everything the sergeant knows about war. John, buy or sell the sounds of Hacksaw Ridge?
I actually have to buy it huge. I think this sounds spectacular. And regardless of what your thoughts are on Mel Gibson, and whether how wacky he is and maybe how out of his mind he is, and so maybe he checked out of the planet Earth about 15 years ago, whatever. The dude can direct. Apocalypto is not a film I would recommend to everybody because it's a very stylized kind of film, but it is one of the most brilliantly directed films I've seen in a long, long time. When you think about what would have had to gone into directing that film and making that happen, it's an achievement. It's a stunning achievement. To see him direct something again is something I've been very, very curious to see. And this story to me sounds fascinating. I like that it's based on a true story. It sounds incredible. I like the lineup of actors. It's been nice seeing Vince Vaughn. I'm not a big fan of True Detective Season 2. But Vince Vaughn has reintroduced himself as a legit, dramatic actor for us in that show. And I'd really be excited to see him get now into a feature film doing that again as well and reintroducing himself to the film audience as such. I think that's great too. I like Andrew Garfield. The story itself sounds great. For me, it's a buy.
It's a big buy for me too. And like I'm a big Mel Gibson fan. Is he a dangerously insane human being? Probably. When you get him on a movie set, the guy knows what he's doing. You hear Mel Gibson and you hear he's making a movie about something in World War II and you go, oh God, what are we in for? This story is incredible, and Mel Gibson might be the right guy to direct it. And like you said, John, the talent that he has involved in this project so far with Andrew Garfield and Vince Vaughn, this could be, you don't want to say it's going to bring Mel Gibson back into what he used to be. He was the biggest star on the planet, and then he became a fantastic director as well when he had The Passion of the Christ and Apocalypto, and then all the other stuff went down. It's not going to bring him back to that. I don't know that anything can. But when you see a movie that's directed by somebody that you're not sure of, it's a lot easier than it is seeing that person star in a film. You don't have to consciously be reminded of it. You can kind of turn your brain off and say, somebody directed this movie, but the action on screen I'm watching is amazing. I think that's what you're going to get with Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah, it's a big buy for me because Mel Gibson was my favorite actor of all time for a long time, and Braveheart's one of my favorites of all time, what he directed. And then you watch his one thing, you go, no. And then you hear him do that. No, just stop. And
it's like that scene in Step Brothers. Just shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. You're making yourself sound stupid.
Yeah, and then he's quiet for a bit, and then it's like, no, put the phone down. No. And here's the thing with Mel Gibson. I understand he's done some despicable things over the last couple of years. Despicable. And I can understand where people out there would be like, I'm never watching anything he does ever again. And I understand that. And at some points, I would even applaud you for it. However, I am also on the mindset that I want to see, I'm always up for a good comeback story. And I also want to see him come out. He's got to address, because once the publicity comes out for this movie, which there will be a lot of it, I want to see him address it. I don't want to see him man up and say everything that he's done wrong in the past, and not just like some fake thing a publicist did. I want to see him go out there.
You could have that talking puppet that he had in that movie. The beaver. You just have the beaver say.
But I want to see, and I'm rooting for him. But I'm also rooting for Vince Vaughn because Vince Vaughn, like you said, is making a change to go back into drama. Because his first run wasn't so great into drama, and he had to go back into comedy. I also like what he's doing on True Detective, but this movie, with what Mel Gibson has done in the past, you say, you hear about World War II and go, I actually get really excited about it because of the battles.
Oh, right.
Mel Gibson can direct battles.
Yes, he can.
Now with Apocalypto and Braveheart, when it comes to violence, there's just something with him in his head. Maybe it's a bit of the crazy that helps him put the violence out there, but it serves a story. It's not just gratuitous. It's hard to watch sometimes, but it serves what the story is, and especially in World War II here. Adding these other characters, I think this could be something great. I'm just figuring, and just tape on the mouth during interviews. That's all I'm saying.
So you want him to own up to it
after he's done.
Under tape.
It's funny because I was going to say, he has actually a lot. I mean, he has kept his mouth shut for years, which is a good move. But before he started, he's put out a lot of statements. He said a lot of things. I almost at this point, if I'm his publicist, and there's a reason I'm not a publicist, but if I was his publicist, I would probably be saying, you know what? Just go to direct the movie. Don't do the press junket. Just go back to whatever, Wolfman cave you live in when you like to hunt your game with your bare hands.
He actually lives in a trailer on the beach.
Yeah. But doesn't that seem like he'd be hiding from it, though?
You know what?
Because they're going to ask.
Here's the thing. I think at some point I mean all of us, at some point have to say, look, he addressed it. He talked about it ad nauseum. And at some point now, we're just looking for him to say something stupid again. Yeah. We're just hoping for it. So you know what? I think if I'm him, I keep my mouth shut for a day. People will say, is he hiding from it? And then you stay silent and that goes away. I would just tell him to shut his mouth because Mel, I love you. I think you're a great director. You're a great talent on screen. You were the best part of the Expendables 3. But you need to just be quiet.
Keep that mouth shut
for now.
Did he do publicity on those movies?
I don't think he did. No, I don't think so. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think he did. All right, what's next?
Remember the Academy Award-winning short film Feast that played in front of Big Hero 6 last year? Well, the director of the film, Patrick Osborne, has signed on to direct Paramount Pictures' Battling Boy movie. The story is based on the 2013 graphic novel and described like this. Monsters roam through Arcopolis, swallowing children into the horrors of their shadowy underworld. Only one man is a match for them, the genius vigilante Haggard West. Unfortunately, Haggard West is dead. Arcopolis is desperate, but when its salvation comes in the form of a 12-year-old demigod, nobody is more surprised than Battling Boy himself. It's time to meet an electrifying new hero. Mark Byers tell the sounds of Battling Boy.
Yeah, dead kid battling bad guys, zombies, aliens. The director of Feast is what sold me on this movie. The fact that this guy was doing anything else, I was like, yeah, whatever that guy wants to do, because if you didn't see Feast, treat yourself. It might be even better than the movie that it preceded, because it's such a cute little story, but the animation was also very well done. It told a nice little tale. I don't know how you do this, though, if you animate it or if you do live action, because I'm not even sure that they've announced whether it's going to be an actual film or they're going to animate it. Like, I would tend to say that if the guy directed Feast, it should stay in the animated world, especially with source material like this, but I gotta admit, it's an intriguing premise. When I see a talent like the guy who did Feast, I want to see that guy tackle other odd things. This would be one of those.
I don't think the kid's dead. I don't think he's a zombie. I think the guy who was the hero in the town is dead, and now this 12-year-old kid is kind of taking up the mantle. That's how I understood it.
That's the job of the director of Feast, to tell me that story.
And you're so right about Feast. I mean, look, seriously, it played in front of Big Hero 6, and Big Hero 6 was wonderful. But guess what? If you played Feast in front of Pixels, I probably would have loved Pixels, because I like Feast just puts you in a mind. Feast is a joy. Mm-hmm. It's a pure joy. And yeah, okay, it's just a short film. You understand, he directed that thing with practically no dialogue in it. He told a story through motion and action that got your heart immediately and had you feeling this euphoric joy and happiness. It was an incredible feat. It was really well done. If you have not seen Feast, I echo Mark's sentiments. Make sure you watch it. But okay, that aside, I think this sounds like a really cool story. And I agree with you. I think you go animation with this. I think it sounds like this, because if this was a live action film, it sounds like a rather high budget thing, perhaps.
Yeah, but you know, we on the show the other day we were talking about, can you ever do something 2D again? This might be something you do with 2D, or maybe do 3D. I don't know how long that conversion takes, or to actually make a 3D film now. I don't know what the time frame is, if it's 2 years down the road that you have to have in order to produce something like that. But animation feels like the right play for this.
I agree. What do you think?
I'm buying it, but I disagree with you guys. I think it's going to go live action. I think that it's I love that Patrick Osborne is doing. There's another guy that, and I don't want to just say because he did Feast, which was incredible, and he did play on emotions, and it was a great movie that got you ready for
Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. There's another guy that went from doing great animation into live action. That's Brad Bird, and he was able to do it. There's other people that have been able to do it, and I think that what I love this trend. The one we always kind of crap on Hollywood for a lot of the trends that they said with remakes and stuff too. One of the trends I think should be applauded. It's happening a lot lately. Is these directors that are getting these smaller movies and getting a shot to do big budget movies. I mean, look at Gareth Edwards, and I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are getting these shots, and Colin Trevorrow, another one. Yep. So I like to see this guy have a shot at a movie, because I don't see Paramount. What other big animation movies has Paramount done recently? I'm not saying there hasn't been any, but that stands out.
Oh, off the top of my head, I can't.
Right, they seem like the big budget action movies and monster movies right now are kind of in. So this would and this genre is in. So if they believe in this guy and they believe in this take, then let's see the live action, because live action could be fun. You're right, it'd probably be big budget, but we're also talking about brand new, based off a graphic novel, obviously, but it's new. It's not a movie that's been remade. So I'd be up for it. I think it'd be kind of cool.
All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show for opening this week. Every week we talk about the new films opening in theaters that week, brought to you by our good friends at AMC Theaters. Now, on Tuesday, we talked to you about one of the films opening this week, Vacation, and now we're talking about the other one, the Tom Cruise aforementioned Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. So, Ashley, tell us about it.
The second major film hitting AMC Theaters this week is the Tom Cruise movie Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. With the IMF now disbanded and Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise, out in the cold, a new threat called the Syndicate syndicate soon emerges. The syndicate is a network of highly skilled operatives who are dedicated to establishing a new world order via an escalating series of terrorist attacks. Faced with what may be the most impossible mission yet, Ethan gathers his team and joins forces with Ilsa Faust, a disavowed British agent who may or may not be a member of this deadly rogue nation. Kristian, should people be heading out to see Mission Impossible Rogue Nation this weekend?
Absolutely. If you haven't watched my and John's review on this on Tuesday, I believe when we did it, it's you should check that out. But we'll I cover a lot of the same points here.
Yeah.
There are some movies that you say, you catch this movie on cable when it comes out, or or get it on Blu-ray. This is a movie that should be seen in theaters. It is everything you want from a summer blockbuster action film, but it's also everything you want from a spy film. It combines all the great elements from the Bourne trilogy, meets James Bond, Tom Cruise, never better, and the woman who plays Ilsa Faust is great as well too. There's so much great in Mission Impossible that I actually think that it's better than the last, and it's very hard for a franchise to keep getting better. 3 was better than 2, 4 was better than 3, and now 5 is better than 4.
Yeah, I completely agree. This movie knocked my socks off. It is a great summer movie. I personally think it's the best of the Mission Impossible franchises. There's an argument to be made that maybe it's the best summer film we've had this year. For me, it's a close competition between it and Ant-Man for me personally. It's just a fabulous, fun film that they were so confident in. And they said, it was supposed to be released like 4 months from now. They said, screw it, let's move it up 4 months and let's put this thing out in summer. And I am so glad they did. So yeah, I think you need to run out and see this thing.
Fine, I'll go see the movie. Jeez, this movie kills it. It gets everything right. And as somebody who loved Ghost Protocol like I did, when he's on top of that building, it's like, how can you possibly follow that? They not only follow that, they follow it quickly. They don't waste time in this movie. This thing opens and boom, you are in it seeing Tom Cruise do crazy things that'll probably get him killed one of these days. Until that happens, I want this guy, like we talked about earlier, to keep cranking out Mission Impossibles because it's such a great blend of action and comedy. The Simon Pegg in these movies is such a great, not just comic relief anymore. He actually is a member of the team, and for him to be able to pepper in jokes and not take away from the story or the action and the way that everybody else works, the addition of Alec Baldwin and Rebecca Ferguson too, it just everything coalesced into one giant ball of fun popcorn for me. And then Tom Cruise is just still such a movie star. Like, this movie maybe is a tiny bit too long as a film, but as a fan of these movies, I wanted it to go on another 3 hours. I just wanted it to keep going. It's so much fun, guys. Go see it.
It's got a great ending. It's got a
really
great ending.
Yeah.
We often complain about a lot of summer films. And it peters off a little bit at the end. How many times do we say that? And this is a great ending.
And a great villain.
And a very solid villain. Yeah. So yes, go out and see it. All right, folks, now we've reached that part of the show for Mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, you can email us anytime at collidervideo@gmail.com. Every day we try to take a couple of your questions. So, Ashley, what's in the mailbag today?
Adam Perez writes, it seems reports about Chris Pine signing to be Stephen Trevor in the upcoming DC film Wonder Woman are circulating once again. Weren't there rumors of him possibly being Green Lantern instead? What the heck is going on? Is there a chance that both could be true? I know after the original Green Lantern movie, it has left a very bad taste of a Hal Jordan version in our mouths. Could the DC Cinematic Universe pull a swerve and still cast Chris Pine as Stephen Trevor as a new Green Lantern for their universe? Thanks, and keep up the amazing work, guys.
Well, first of all, I mean, it is funny how often I get emails and Facebook messages and whatever from people who say, hey, wait a minute, it was rumored that this was going to happen. What's going on there? Ignore rumors. I cannot stress this enough, how this is like the theme of my life. Folks, ignore rumors. Just because somebody was talking about it, that doesn't mean it was never going to happen. What is funny about the question, though, it is about, well, what if Steve Trevor, who's being played by Chris Pine, is in fact, or becomes Green Lantern in this universe, because they don't have a Green Lantern movie planned yet. They've just given some suggestions that there may be a core. It was about 4 months ago. I was talking to another guy in our industry, and he said to me that the weirdest kind of thing is, I know this sounds weird, I kind of heard some rumblings that they actually might make Steve Trevor, the guy who's the love interest of Wonder Woman, they might actually make him Green Lantern and play like a dual role in this DC Cinematic Universe. And both he and I were just like, nonsense. And I still think it's nonsense, but it's just really funny that comes up in the question. So you're not the only person out there who is, theorizing this. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they're going to have a Green Lantern. I think it's going to be Hal Jordan, or it's going to be Guy Gardner, or it's going to be Jon Stewart, it's going to be, or maybe a whole collection of them. There's some talk about them actually having a Green Lantern core movie with multiple Earth Green Lanterns, which could be very interesting and very cool. But I think Chris Pine is Steve Trevor. I think he's going to be a mortal dude, and I think that's the way they're going to go with it. Kristian, do you see it differently?
No, I don't see it any differently, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked, but I also think it's very risky for them to do that, because this is a universe right now, and you look at Batman v Superman, they're sticking to a lot of things that have happened in certain versions of comics and pulling elements from things that that the fans are familiar with. To do this, you're gonna piss off a bunch of people, the fans of Green Lantern, because the Green Lantern fans are hardcore, and they were very let down by what happened last time. So you want to and I'm not saying it's going to be a bad move. I'm just saying it's a risky move if they do that. As far as Pine goes, I think he's going to wind up being a Wonder Woman. I think he's perfect for that role. I'd like to see someone else do Hal Jordan down the line. That's personally for me, but I wouldn't be shocked if this happens.
Sure, I think he should be Steve Trevor. I think he should be Green Lantern. He should be the next Shaft. Chris Pine should be literally in every movie coming out. You know what's interesting about this is, like, you guys were talking about how even in the other Green Lantern that people didn't like, there was a lot of lanterns involved. Like in this giant universe that we have, there's a ton of lanterns. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that Steve Trevor at some point can stumble upon a ring and be like, oh, what the hell is this? Maybe he's one of the Earthlings that becomes a lantern. But Tyrese is on the edge of his seat watching us talk about this right now. I still think it's going to be Tyrese. It's going to be Jon Stewart. But I think you're going to have the way to introduce this. You're right. You need to be very careful because of how real Batman v Superman, that trailer, felt, and then Wonder Woman is incorporated in that, and then Steve Trevor is in Wonder Woman's life. So the way that you ingratiate the Green Lantern into this universe has to be very, very, you're sneaking around at night. So maybe you don't do that in Wonder Woman. Maybe you step back and you make that a standalone film. Then you try to incorporate it into the universe.
All right, what's next?
Joe Stuckey writes, I love Ted 2, and I wouldn't mind seeing a third film, but I'm not sure if Universal will go through with it after the box office results on Ted 2 and A Million Ways to Die in the West. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on a Ted 3 and if you think it will happen.
Ted 2 is a very interesting thing because as a whole, as a complete film, start to finish, Ted, I believe at any rate, is the superior film to Ted 2. That being said, there are moments in Ted 2 that are higher peaks of hilarity than we had in Ted 1, I thought. There are several scenes that are already coming to my mind. The Jurassic Park theme is not the least of which. They did some really funny stuff in Ted 2, but it wasn't as consistent, it wasn't as even as the first film was, and the first film I just thought was a better film overall. Why people did not go out to see Ted 2 is a little bit of a mystery to me. The first one was received very well. The marketing for the second one was not bad. I thought the marketing was fairly good. Was it a spectacular campaign? No. And I really didn't think people would be having the taste of A Million Ways to Die in the West, since it's not actually McFarlane in the film, and I didn't think that a lot of people would have been like media savvy enough to really make that connection. So I'm a little bit of a loss. I didn't think Ted 2 was horrible. I thought it had some really good highlights, even though it wasn't as good as the first. The performance, I never would have guessed it would have done this poorly. To get to the answer to your question, do we think they'll do a Ted 3? I highly doubt it. I don't think they'll put in the money to do a Ted 3. I would, like you, I would like to see one because the second one made me laugh enough that I'd be intrigued. I just don't think it's going to happen.
But Mark Wahlberg said he was going to make it in Entourage. Didn't you guys see that movie? That's an official quote now. I'm going to use a workout analogy real quick. The first Ted was like a nice, like really steady jog. The second Ted was like interval training. It was like, oh man, you're laughing, and then you're just like, oh, what the hell's happening here? I'd love to see a Ted 3. I think that we're probably in the slight minority on that because people, again, they just didn't have an overwhelming response to Ted 2, despite how hilarious it was at points. I'm not dying to see a Ted 3. I don't need it. If I had my way, I'd just have Seth MacFarlane stick to Family Guy because Family Guy entertains me on such a scale that it's actually damaging to most of my relationships. But if he was going to do another movie, I'd like to see Ted 3. I never saw A Million Ways to Die in the West. I kind of stayed away from that. Kristian saw it, told me about it, and said you never need to see it. And I'm like, all right. So Seth MacFarlane at some point will do another shot at a live-action film, and I hope it goes better than A Million Ways to Die in the West did. I think that's probably where he's focusing his energy as opposed to making Ted 3 after these box office results. But I just want to see Seth MacFarlane work, and the guy makes me laugh.
If it happens, I actually do want to see it as a Netflix film. Like, to me, that would be the way to do this movie because you guys are 100% right. It's got some big belly laughs, but you're like, wait, this is the same story points that literally happened in the last movie. what are you doing here? And I do think that A Million Ways to Die in the West had a lot to do with it, because that movie, my dad was a huge fan of Ted. Loved Ted, ran out to see that movie because he loved it so much, and then called me and said, I don't think I'm going to see Ted 2 because that movie was so bad. Yeah. And then he went, he saw it, and he got the big laughs out of it too. But that's the thing, is that I don't know how much more you can do with the movie anymore. It's just a matter of the jokes, and you're just going there to laugh. And if that's the case, I think it serves better on a live streaming site at this point, because audiences didn't run to see this, and it's a big gamble for Universal to take on a third movie for a second one that did okay.
You know what the funny thing is, in the first Ted, the first Ted was not perfect, but there was no one big thing in Ted that I thought, man, this thing was a giant weight, an anchor dragging you down. The second Ted, Giovanni Ribisi, who I like very much as an actor.
Rehash.
But bringing that character back was a phenomenal mistake. And every time he was on the screen, and I don't blame the actor for it, but every time he was on the screen, it just screeched any momentum the film had to a complete halt. Didn't care. Nothing was funny. And it made it, because the movie to me didn't feel like a rehash up until that point. Once they brought him in again, it's like it's The Hangover 2 all over again.
Well, yeah, and they did that at the end. I mean, instead of Fenway Park, it was New York Comic Con. It was the same thing. It was the same movie. The end was the same.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us for this installment of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films are playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theater, showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. If you like the audio podcast, hey guys, for a limited time, we are making all of our audio podcasts available again. Check in the description of this video so you can find the link to the podcast feed. I want to thank the people sitting at the table with me. Sitting over here on my left, Mr. Mark Ellis. Mark, where can people find you online?
You can find me online, $1 poor, because that's going to Miss Ashley Mova. Well done today. On Twitter and Instagram at 5150 Ellis, and all my fall tour dates are at markellislive.com.
Sitting over here, the host of Jedi Council, coming to you a little bit later today here on Collider Video on our YouTube channel, Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Kristian Harloff on both Twitter and Instagram. And like John said, today it's going to be myself, Mark, and Tiffany Smith on Collider Jedi Council. Make sure you guys hashtag Collider Jedi Council and get your questions on the air. We have a lot of stuff. We're talking about a particular Netflix deal going down that I'm very happy to talk about.
And, of course, our lovely host today and the best Lois Griffin impersonator I have ever heard, Miss Ashley Mova. Ashley, where can people find you online?
On Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. Happy Thursday, guys.
And, of course, you can find me on all the various social media channels just at John Campea. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And for Collider Video, bye-bye.